All right, today is May 15th, 2008. We're sitting in the home of Ellis Vanderpool, and we are right outside of Arnsville, Illinois. How many miles outside of Arnsville are we?
I'm inside the city limits.
It's actually inside the city limits?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so we're inside the city limits. And we're sitting in his home. Now, Ellis, can you tell me a little bit about your family and, kind of where they came from and their history?
Most of the kids is born here in Illinois, and well, one of them was born while I was in service, and so other than that, they was right around here. They was born.
Mm-hmm. How many children do you have?
6.
6. And boys, girls?
3 girls and 3 boys.
3 girls and 3 boys. Where are they all living now?
Well, one's in Florida, the youngest girl, and the next boy is up by Chicago at Aurora, and the next boy is over here at Mason City. Works for he manages FS, Sunrise Egg.
Mm.
And then Rosalie Kay, is a nurse up here at the hospital in Jacksonville. And then Ron, he lives over in Iowa, or Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Pam.
Hmm?
Pam, I said Pam.
Oh yeah, Pam, she lives over. That's my next, the oldest daughter. She's lives up here at over here at Concord, and she works at the bank over here.
Okay. Now, can you tell me about your parents? Who your parents were? And
Well, I can tell you about my mother. My father, I never really knew him.
okay.
So, all I know is my mother. She was born in Missouri, and we moved over here, and she died a few years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Now, what sort of things did she do? I mean, to keep the household going.
Just a housewife.
Just a housewife.
Help
And
work on the farm.
Was that here?
No,
No.
they had a farm back over here.
Oh, just
My
down the road then?
Stepdad, yeah, back in through there.
Okay. And what sort of farm was that?
Just an old sand farm that they raised melons and stuff like that on. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, this is your farm
Yep.
that we're sitting on now. Can you kind of explain what your farm kind of looks like, what the layout is?
I don't know. It's just 38.9 acre or 38.8 acres, and we made an orchard out of it, and we used to raise strawberries and etc. like that, cherries and stuff like that on it. Yeah.
So I heard you said strawberries
Yeah.
and cherries. What other things do you do?
We had apples and peaches. Apples and peaches here. You used to pick it yourself, and so
Hello.
So it was kind of where people could come and pick their
yeah,
own.
we let people come pick their own strawberries and the apples and also the peaches.
Okay.
We let them pick their own.
Now, on that
But,
38 acres, what kinds of buildings were there? Were there?
Oh, there's just barn and this house and shed there, and that's about it.
That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Chicken house out here that I use for storage.
Oh.
We never did raise chickens, so yeah.
Okay. Now, in the orchard business, I'm sure there's some tricks of the trade and things like that. And for the things that you're growing, I mean, what are some of the things that you did that made your produce special compared to other places?
Well, I don't know. They're the last. No, we got the orchard anymore. Just not much to it. I've got many trees we used to have, but we used to, before we let people go in there to pick, we used a special stuff on there that was for about 30 days. It's called Basic H, and we sprayed it on there so that it was no insecticides or anything on there, because the federal government used to come out and inspect your fruit to see if you had any insecticides or stuff on it.
Really?
I don't know if they do that anymore or not, but they never come around here. But they used to come out here and they'd get so many apples and they'd take it in and check it for insecticide on it. So we got to using that there about 30 days before we let anybody in the orchard, and that way they never did find any insecticide on ours.
Now, what would happen if they did find insecticide?
I don't know. I never did have them find any.
Oh.
But knowing the federal government, you can imagine what's happened.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
come in and shuts down.
Huh. Wow.
So,
So that was really kind of the only government inspection that was going
yeah,
on?
that was
just
the
on
only
that?
one I had until they finally come in. I think it was the state that come in here and said you had to take your making the cider. You had to come in and have it sterilized or all that kind of stuff that they wanted done to it. And I just stopped making it
Hmm.
because of that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, did you just stop because it would have been too expensive to sterilize
Yeah,
it? Or just...
to do it, the expense would have been too high for me to do it. I didn't have that big of an operation.
Mm.
I know I've got friends down in southern Illinois that they do it, but they got big orchards, and so
Okay.
yeah.
So now you also made cider. I
Yeah,
didn't
but
realize that.
we did that for a lot of years. We was letting people pick their own and stuff like that. But then we stopped it quite a few years ago when that come in. They started doing that. Yeah.
So how much were you charging for, like, I guess it was by the bushel?
But I mean, for the apples.
Yeah, for apples,
Yeah.
let's say.
I don't remember what do I, $4 or $5 a bushel. Pick at your own.
And when was that? Probably
10, 12 years ago. 20.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then what about for the cider?
I think it was something like $2 a gallon.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's not
So,
bad. Now what about peaches? I think you said you had peaches, right?
yeah.
How much did you charge for the peaches on them?
That's so long ago. I don't remember. Probably, we probably about $8 a bushel. I imagine. Pick it yourself.
$8.
Yeah.
So then, did you have a lot of people that were coming in?
Yeah, we
Like-
never had to do much picking at all. People just come in here and we'd clean them out. Yeah.
How many people on average did you think
Oh,
would
gee.
come through?
They come in here and pick them. If they was green, they picked them. So,
I
even
imagine
though
it-
you told them differently.
Yeah, I
So-
imagine it probably got pretty busy.
Well, for us, all we did was sit around, took the money, and let them go help themselves.
Well, that's not too bad then.
No, it wasn't too bad at all. But I think there's some orchards down towards St. Louis that still let you go in there and pick them.
Oh,
Yeah. So.
well, very
Yeah.
cool. So, I mean, I'm seeing that you have people coming in to pick them and all these sorts of things. I mean, in comparison to the market of bringing your fruits and vegetables to some other place, to like a farmer's market, I mean, were you getting a better deal that way by having people come in?
Oh yeah, because you didn't have the labor to do it, and you didn't have to haul it no place and everything. So naturally, it was more profitable to do it that way and let people pick their own. That's the same way with the strawberries. This field right out here was our strawberry field. There are 2 acres there, and it was naturally a lot cheaper to have them do that. Made more money at it than we did picking it ourselves, because you have to hurry help and all that kind of stuff. See, and
Yeah. Did you ever try to do that, bringing it into the market?
yeah, we took some into the markets. We used to go to the Jacksonville market, and we hauled them up there. I never did take them to Springfield market.
Hmm.
Yeah, we got a friend that hauled them up there, and so he does a good job of it. I got my bees over there pollinating it, and so
Well, there you go.
yeah.
Now, I mean, you allowed the public basically into your home practically. You have to have some kinds of stories about people coming to pick stuff.
Well, I don't know. The only thing that I don't know. One time, Polly, our youngest daughter, used to be our foreman that run around through the orchard and stuff. And I know one guy, she threatened to run him out of the orchard because he kept climbing the trees. And we had ladders, and we didn't want him climbing the trees. And she told him about 3 or 4 times, and he still insisted on it, and finally she told him she's going to run him out of the orchard if he didn't stop climbing that tree.
So then he listened after that?
Yeah, he listened after that.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I guess one of the real reasons why we're here is bees,
Mm-hmm.
as you mentioned. Can you tell me a little bit how you got started in doing bees?
Well, I had the strawberries first before I had the rest of the orchard. We had strawberries a couple of years. And there was an old gentleman that was going to bring me the bees. So when it come time that the strawberries was blooming, and we went to get the bees to ask him to bring the bees, and he's had rheumatoid arthritis bad.
Mm.
And he said he can't pick them up. He said, you guys are going to have to move them over there yourself. Well, we was a little nervous about that and didn't have no bee equipment or anything else, and so we put on all kinds of coveralls and everything else and went over there. And he was one of these beekeepers that didn't believe in plugging holes out in the hive. They could get out anywhere they wanted to, and so them bees flew around, and so we finally got some over here, and when we got them over here, we decided if we we're going to have to do that, we we're going to have the bee business ourselves, and so that's when we started with the bees.
So I imagine you got stung up a little bit?
Yeah, a few stings now and then.
So, you know, kind of starting out as a beginner, where did you kind of gain your knowledge about keeping bees?
This gentleman that had the bees, I got an awful lot of it from him.
Mm.
And then you go and you talk to old beekeepers around, and when you have a problem, you go to another beekeeper and ask him what his was. The guy's been in it for a long time.
So you got some books from Day Dance?
And yeah, we got books from Day Dance
Mostly self-taught.
and stuff like that. Read up on it.
So really, you started in the bee business to pollinate your strawberries?
That's right. That's what we started in for.
Wow.
Yep.
And then were you using them to pollinate the trees as well in the
Right.
orchard?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We had them setting. I always had hives. I got hives sitting up here right now, for the few trees we've got, and they really work them over good.
Huh.
Then people started asking us to bring them over for pollination, and we haul them over there, and sometimes to them. We stopped that too.
Can you kind of tell me how a bee is? I mean, what's the process for a bee to pollinate a tree and stuff? I mean, what if...
They've got to visit one bloom at least 6 times in order to pollinate that bloom. I'm going with what the experts say. They say it has to they had to visit that bloom 6 times before it's pollinated.
Huh.
So they just fly around and pollinate them. And if you got good strong hives, you got plenty of bees are flying around. And it's warm.
And how far away are the bees traveling to pollinate?
They will go up to 2 miles.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they'll fly 2 miles. But my bees was right up here close to it. They didn't have to go a half quarter to them, and they was in there thick. They used to set on that, get on them peach trees that we had, and boy, they would set every bloom on there, and then you have to go out and knock half, 3/4 of them off.
Oh.
Because if you left too many peaches on there, they got to be little old bitty things, see, and so if you want nice big peaches, you got to knock half, 2/3 of them off. Yeah.
So I guess really the idea is not to pollinate every flower?
Well, you can't very well stop them from doing that. They'll go in there. If the flowers are there, they'll pollinate them.
Mm-hmm.
I just brought them back from a guy down at Grafton, and the few hives I usually do run out, and he got a good set. He said he's going to have to go out there and thin them.
Oh, really?
The apples. His apples. Oh, yeah. They was on there thick.
Huh.
So he was going to go in there 7 and thin them down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, can you kind of explain to me how... I mean, you see the white boxes as the hives and everything. Can you kind of explain to me, how the hive is set up?
Well, they're set up with the main base of the hive I got 9 sections in the base where usually the queen is at, and that's where she lays her eggs. She'll lay them from side to side. And then I usually leave an Illinois super on top of that for her to lay in also. And then after that, I put a queen excluder on to keep her out because she'll go plumb to the top otherwise. and then put boxes and boxes on top of that, supers on there to put the honey into.
Mm. Now you mentioned an Illinois super.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, the shallow supers are smaller supers, and the Illinois supers are bigger, considerable bigger.
Now a super inside of. Explain to me what a super is exactly.
A super is a box so and so size. I can't remember right now what the size of it is, but anyway, it's got 9 sections in it also with foundation in it that they'll build up and put their honey in up there.
Okay. Now what's the foundation made out of?
Wax.
It's wax.
It's beeswax. I get it from Day Dance. They make it for me, and I put it in there. I take my old wax down there to them, and they'll make it into foundation.
So you get a wax sheet kind of,
Yeah.
and you put it in kind of the frame.
In the frame.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it's
the
called,
frame.
and then it goes inside.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
And
they'll
then
build it out, them combs like you see them. See.
now you mentioned there was an excluder.
That's a queen excluder. It's made out of steel, and it's big enough that the slots are big enough that the workers can go through, but the queen can't, because the queen is about 2/3 bigger than the workers, see, and so she can't get through them slots, but the workers can, see. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then I guess the workers can go up to the top.
Oh yeah.
And what's going on at the top of the hive? That's where the honey is that you're
Yeah,
able to.
up in them supers, it's above the queen excluder. That's where it is.
Okay.
I try to keep an empty super down next to the excluder, so they don't have to go up so high to get to the super to put the honey in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you said the queen is larger.
Yeah.
Now what are the? I mean, there seems to be like a social classification for different bees.
Yeah.
What do you?
All the workers are females.
Okay.
They got the stingers. The queen's is a female also, and she's got a stinger also. But then the drones, which are males, they don't have any stingers, and they can't go up through the queen excluder either because they're bigger than the workers. So that's the classifications right there.
Interesting. Now, I mean, in terms of population, are there more males, more females?
More females.
More females.
More females. Yeah.
And what? I guess how do you determine what a drone is going to be? How do they figure out? You know.
You can tell in the thing. You can see the size of the way the cells are and everything. They're a lot bigger, sticking out further, than the worker cells. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the queen cells, they hang down straight down like that, and they're about as big as your finger anyway.
Oh, really?
So that's what the queen is now.
So we have these 3 classifications of bees, and you know, where are you getting bees from?
I make my own. I have. I'll take and get some of them queen cells and make more hives. They get a bunch of queen cells in there. I'll pick out the nice looking queen cells, put them in another hive, and put so many bees in there, and they'll.
Really?
Yeah, they'll make their own hive.
And now, I've heard there's 1 queen to a hive.
Yeah.
Why would they be making more queen cells then?
Well, they get crowded. If they get crowded, or in the spring of the year like that, it's just a natural phenomenon that they swarm. Because if you don't split them up, when they start making all those queen cells, they will take off, and the old queen will leave about half your hive and take off. And so it's best to stick her into another hive, or stick the new queen into another hive, and split them up so that they aren't crowded. Because if she's a good queen, she probably lays 2,500 eggs a day or better, and so she can really build up a hive in a hurry.
Wow.
Young queens usually do that. They really lay eggs, the young queens.
Huh. And how often do you find that you need to split a hive on average?
Every spring.
Every spring?
That's why I come back from Arizona, because I already found 1 swarm hanging out yesterday out there. And like I said, I haven't went through all the bees yet, and so I imagine there's queen cells in them. See, so
So now you found a swarm out there, which means that a queen had left her hive.
the
Well,
old
what do you
queen
do?
I just put her in another box and brought her home.
Well, I
Another
mean,
hive.
how do you handle this big swarm of bees? I mean,
And just
what's the
stick
procedure?
Me, I just stick the hive under there, and I usually put a little honey on them, one or two sections of draw comb, and stick it under there and shake them off in the hive, and it's been cool and nasty. And usually they'll go in there because that's what they're doing. They're just looking for a home.
Oh, okay.
Most of the swarms, when they're there, that's what they're doing. They're looking for a home, and they'll go into your hive. Sometimes the old queen won't like it and she'll leave, but the majority of the times they stay there.
Interesting. And they just stay because you're providing them
A home.
the best home that they could probably
Yeah.
find.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you seen other bee operations around and how they do it? Are there any differences?
Oh yeah, we've went down to meetings, the beekeeper meetings you have around, and you learn stuff from them too, and the things they do. And every beekeeper's got a different way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of go around to these meetings and you learn from them,
Mm-hmm.
and so.
What are what are the big differences in your practices compared to kind of the average guy, I guess you'd say?
Not a lot.
Not
Not a lot. We're all pretty much doing things pretty much the same. Some of them put double high bodies on top of the bees, and some of them out west, because I go out there and see the beekeepers out there too, and in Texas and places like that, and most of them run double high bodies. Some of them are running triple high bodies, but me, I just use one high body and a super on top, an Illinois super on top, and that makes them strong enough that that's about all I want to mess with. You get too many bees there, and then they get sassy.
Well, bringing that point up, I mean, how do you deal with them trying to sting you and things like that?
I got an Africanized bee suit that I wear.
Oh, really?
Yep.
And
They can't sting through it.
really,
Yeah.
well, what's it made out of exactly?
It's nylon, with some kind of a woven stuff inside, and then it's got 2 layers of nylon, and that stuff's in between it, and they can't get through it. And so, once in a while, one of them I'll get bent over or something and get stretched it, and one of them will let me have it, but not too often. I don't have too much trouble with the bees trying to sting me. No.
Huh.
They get your scent, and they kind of put up with you.
And they get to know you.
Yeah. They
Interesting.
put up with you. As long as you don't go in through the bottom. You go in through the bottom, that angers them. But usually you go in through the top, and they'll tolerate you.
Huh.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time where you would find you need to go through the bottom?
I usually go from the top down.
You always go
I'll
from
go
top
from
down.
the top down. The only time I ever went into the bottom is when the bottom board fall off or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah. Then you you got a problem. Of course, that bee suit I got, I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, they come at you pretty good then.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there a warning that they'll give before they're getting ready to sting and attack you, or
Not really.
not really?
Not really.
It's just hold on tight.
Just go on and ignore them, and if you ignore them and you're not afraid of them, well, then they usually don't attack you very much. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but them
No.
Africanized bees out west, now it's another story.
Really?
That's a whole different ballgame.
Really?
They come at you in a mass, and they'll kill you. Hey, these bees we got around here, there'll probably be maybe 24 at the most will come after you. Them Africanized bees out there'll be 1,000 or so come at you, one shot, and then they just keep it coming.
Wow. Now
Yeah.
that's making me think, how many bees are in a hive on average?
They can run all the way from between 60 to 100,000, depending on how many bees you got. I got a friend over there that they're using double hive bodies, and I bet he's got 100,000 bees in that hive. Because
Wow.
boy, that old queen's laid eggs both hive bodies full, and I know he gets around them sometime, and they get pretty sassy.
Huh.
Yep.
Wow. And you also mentioned before that you're loaning or maybe renting some of your hives out.
I rented 10 hives down there to an orchard in Grafton.
Now, does that make you pretty good money here?
Not really, because not in this year anyway. He gives me $50 a hive, but it's 100 miles down there, and this gas prices and the old truck I get don't get that good gas mileage.
Mm-hmm.
And but he's a fellow orchard man, so we kind of work together.
Mm.
If I need apples, I can go down and get apples. So it all comes out in the wash, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's involved in moving a hive?
Well, I've got special doors that I slap on the front of mine. I'll go out there early in the morning before they get out, and I'll put these trap doors on there, see, and then I usually got 1 or 2 supers on top of them, and I'll steeple them together, and then we just pick them up and put them in a truck and move them. And when you go let them out, you better have your bee suit on, because if you got strong hives like we've got, they don't like being bounced over the road for 100 miles or 50 miles, and and by the time you get ready to let them out, they're very angry. So you better have your bee suit on. We used to haul them up to Tazewell County up there to the pumpkin fields, and I saw many a farmer up there stand around and watch us, and they was quite a ways off, and they got zapped anyway, because they come out of that hive and they are mad.
Really?
Yeah.
And how long do you think they would last that they're, angry?
Angry? Oh, I don't know, 1 day. I wouldn't mess around them for 1 day. So, yeah.
So they kind of don't forget for...
Yeah, they forgive you after about a day. If they're strong hives, and we never rent them out to a person unless we got good strong hives.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about one of the other things that these beehives are producing, and that's honey.
Yeah.
And your honey business. Now, you make different types of honey. What?
Well, see, we've got bees all over. I've got some bees sitting here, and I got bees 2 places across the river over there towards Rushville and beyond that, and then I got them across the river down here. We got bees sitting everywhere around, and it just depends on where the thing's at, and I kind of keep track of where they're at, and then when we get the certain kinds of honey, well, then we just take it and extract it, and kind of keep it separate.
Interesting. Now, what sorts of crops produce what types of honey?
Well, the best I've got is sweet clover, but you don't have sweet clover anymore. It seems as though some of the people in the USDA got the idea it was a noxious weed, and they wasn't going to let the farmers plant it anymore until I got a hold of our congressman, who's on the agriculture board in Washington, and he got hostile and called them all up and told them that they wasn't supposed to be telling the farmers that. And so, he said if they heard anybody saying that anymore, to let him know, and he'd straighten them out. So, but that's the best you can get around in this area, other than the black locust. And this black locust is not very dependable. We hope it blooms this year. It hasn't bloomed yet, but the black locust honey is in great demand. But
what kind of honey does it produce? Is it?
It's a light honey, and it's a mild honey, and it's got a wonderful taste to it. Heck, we sell out that stuff. First thing we do is sell out that black locust honey. Got people standing orders waiting to get it, and so. So we even charge extra for the black locust, and that don't faze them at all. They'll take it over the other honey.
Really?
And then we used to get buckwheat down here at when there's a farmer down here that plants buckwheat along the river to duck hunt over, because ducks like that buckwheat seed. And it seems like last year and the year before we just didn't get any of that either, much. So got a little, but not much. So everybody seems to go for that too. I don't like it. It's strong honey. Yeah.
Too dry for it.
It's too dry.
It's my favorite.
What's that, buckwheat?
Yeah, I got buck locust from you last fall.
Yeah, we got some, but not much, and then we soon run out. We run out now. Yeah.
Interesting.
We had 5-gallon barrels of that. A couple of
55 gallons.
55-gallon
Oh,
barrels
really?
of buckwheat
Yeah.
Wow.
for 5 years, I bet.
Hmm.
He said, I guess I'll have to try to sell it. Girl. I said, well, why don't you take it to the farmer's market? He would just practically give it away, and man, it really became popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, it costs as much to produce that as it does the others. And guess what? The 5-gallon barrels are empty now.
Yeah, I had them sitting out here. I didn't I didn't know what I was going to do with the stuff, and so finally we started taking it to the farmer's market, and people got so they liked it. Me, I usually don't sell anything I don't like myself. If I taste all my honey, and if I don't like it, then I just figure everybody else don't like it either. So
Well, what do you look for?
I'm a mild honey eater, and I will eat it. I used to get a lot of soybean honey till they got this Roundup Ready soybeans, and the bees won't touch it.
Really?
And so I used to get a lot of soybean honey, and that's really a good honey. We do get wildflower honey, which is a darker honey, but it's got a fairly good taste to it. But usually the lighter honeys is what I go for and stuff like that. Usually the wildflower honey is the darkest that other than the buckwheat, which everybody wants, is I usually don't mess around too much anymore. We used to not keep goldenrod. And then we found out how we could take the smell out of the goldenrod honey by just aerating it, putting it in a barrel and aerating it, and just put them in a barrel and let it set for a couple of 3 days, and the smell of the goldenrod will leave.
Really?
Well, so
And it's good honey too.
it's really got a good flavor to it, but that odor that came from it when you first got it, it turned everybody off.
Really?
Yeah. But now, heck, we found out how to handle it, and then the people buy it. In fact, they ask for it.
Interesting.
So,
Some people would just sell them at the bakeries, so the beekeepers, until they discovered to do it that way. Of course, those were some older guys that's not in the business anymore now.
Now, I've heard 55-gallon barrels a couple of times. How much honey are you producing a year?
well, at that time, I had about 250 hives of bees. In these last few years, I've been losing hives. Now, I'm down to this year, about 60 hives is all I had left when I got back from Arizona this year. They was all good, strong hive, but the rest of them just died. I don't know the weather and stuff like that, but I just have to build them back up. It don't take long to build them back up. You got 60 hives and split them one time, you got 120.
Yeah.
But I used to have about 250 hives of bees, and that's when I was getting it. And then there was, like I said, there was a lot of the soybean honey. I got a lot of that. Some of the neighbors down here used to plant yellow sweet clover. We'd get that, and bees can really get a lot of honey out of them in a hurry. So
now, you mentioned that you're finding that you're losing bees.
yeah,
And I've seen a few articles on a disease called colony collapse disease.
yeah.
Have you heard much about that?
No. Oh yeah, I've heard all about it, but that ain't what I'm losing on from. Mine, and I think what I'm losing it from is I haven't been replacing the queens every 2 years like I used to. I'm getting older and I'm getting lazy. And if I replace the queens every 2 years, I used to get my queens out of California up there. one big beekeeper up there, and I always got good queens of them, and I'd replace the queen every 2 years. That way you got a young queen, and she keeps the hives all built up real strong, and they survive these Illinois winters a lot better. Would you let a queen get old, and then in the wintertime she dies, and then the hive's gone, see? You got to keep replacing your queens. If you don't replace those queens every 2 years, you're asking trouble.
So I guess there's kind of a life cycle to a hive then.
There is the queen. The queen will last about 4 years, up to 4 years. But other than that, and some of them will last longer than that, but they don't really produce good, you know.
Well, how do you go about replacing a queen? I mean, it seems like there's one bee and thousands of bees here, and you got to find the right one. And
the way I replaced mine was that I would take these hives and go into there. I'd call them up in California because they'd send them right to me. It'd take 2 days for them to get here. And I'd order 25 queens, and then I'd go up there to them hives, and I'd take the old queen out, leave them without a queen. By the time they got back, the other queens got here, they had realized they was out of a queen, and before they could make queen cells, I stuck that queen in there, and then she'd come out, they'd accept her, because they're coming in a little box about that long, and yay wide, and that thick, and they got about 3 or 4 bees in there with her. And you stick them in there, and they've got a little candy on one end. And they'll get in there and eat that candy out of there, and in about 24 hours they'll release her, and they'll accept her. I never had any not accept the queens.
Really?
We're doing it that way. So, and I've seriously thought about getting me some queens this year from that company out there.
What's the purpose of having a couple other bees in with the queen? What
Well, I guess it's for kind of feed her, and also to keep her company, I guess, or something, because they always put all 2 to 6 bees in there with her.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then they also eat that little candy.
Yeah.
Throughout that time.
It's got about that much on the end of it, probably.
Oh, wow.
Just like a little plug.
Just plug in there, yeah.
Interesting.
So
now, to kind of get back to the topic of honey, how exactly do you get the honey out of the hive?
I got a honey shed out there that I fixed up, and it's got a stainless steel extractor in it, and you cut the top off the sections that's on there, and then you put it in there and spin it out.
With the electric knife?
Yeah. Cut it off with an electric heated knife, and then you spin it out.
Now, there's probably some wax involved in that gets in the honey. Is
we
that
run
strained?
it through cheesecloth.
Oh.
Twice through cheesecloth. Yeah. Okay. Double run it through there. Yeah. And that takes all the impurities out of it. It's still raw honey. We don't heat our honey. We just, it's like it comes out of the comb. That's what you get. Yeah. And so, and people will notice the difference between they'll notice the difference between honey that's in the comb and the honey extracted. When you extract it, you take some of the flavor away from it, and it'll taste better when it's just right in the comb. I have cut comb honey too, and so it tastes better when it's in the cut comb like that than it is. It does the extracted honey. That spinning it out, it seems to take some of the taste out or something. It takes that flavor out or somewhere or the other. I don't know what it is, but I always thought it tastes better when it come right out of the comb.
Interesting.
Like that.
And how much do you charge for your honey?
I don't know what we're going to charge this year. We've got some of them in the grocery shelf up here at County Market or Festival Foods. And we're charging, what is it, $3 and
89 cents.
89 cents for 1 pound, I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. So.
How long a process are we talking about to get honey out of the hive? I mean, is it a day-long process?
Yeah, it depends on how many supers you got. You can go through them pretty fast, but it just takes so much time.
Took a day or two to get the supers all in here, and then extracted them for a couple of days.
if the honey flow is on, well, you can take them supers and put them right back on, and they'll fill it back up in a hurry. Honey flow. Seems like they like to fill that up and then faster than they do the ones when you're just fresh putting it on. Yeah.
Now, we were talking a little bit about disease and this colony collapse disease. Are there any other, big disease fears out there for honeybees?
Well, you've got foul brood in Illinois that you got to watch out for. And
what is that one?
American foul brood.
Foul brood?
Yeah.
What does it do? I mean, how
it gets in there and it kills the new bees and everything, and it'll just as it dies off, it gets a terrible smell to it, and you can tell when you got it. Looking at that after so long, looking at it, you can tell by looking at the sections whether they've got foul brood in them or not.
And how do you deal with that?
Destroy the hive.
Really? That's got to be a hard thing to do.
Well, hey, it's better to destroy one hive than to have all your bees get it. Because they can transport from one to the other. When the hive gets weak, the other bees will go in and rob it, and then you got it in another hive. So the best thing to do is just destroy the hive. And you don't have to destroy the box and everything like that, but you got to kill the bees, and then you take them and pile them out in a hole in the ground and set them on fire and burn them, so the other bees can't get to it. The honey and everything, because them spores get in the honey and everything.
Wow.
Then I got a torch out there. We burn a torch, and I take it and I scorch the insides of the hives and the lids and everything, so that make sure there ain't no disease left there. But I haven't had any foul brood for several years now, because we stopped using chemicals and stuff on our bees, so we don't use chemicals anymore. And we don't have any mites, and we don't just kind of got away from having the bees. The trouble with them.
Now, what would you use chemicals for?
To kill the mites.
Okay.
And for the foul brood and stuff like that. A lot of people are using lots of that there.
So, are there any other, hazards for bees besides those?
Humans.
Humans.
I've had people deliberately run into them with cars. I had one this year when I got back from Arizona that some guy had rammed into them, turned them over. One of the hives died, but the other one, it was very angry, but it wasn't hurt. Yeah.
And I mean,
just devilment.
Wow. and the one that survived, I mean, how did they survive? I mean, it was probably a couple days before you.
When the hive turned over, I don't know how long it'd been over. When the hive turned over, it didn't fall apart. It just stayed all in one together. See.
Okay.
But the other one fell apart.
Oh.
And the cold weather and stuff got in there and killed them.
So it seems like the hives are very sensitive to temperature.
Yes. Yes, they are.
What kinds of maximums, minimums can they handle?
Well, they usually won't leave the hive much after it reaches 40 degrees. They usually don't leave the hive too much after that. Usually, the best temperature I found for working my bees was between 70 and 80 degrees.
Okay.
And I'm a warm weather person, so for me, that's all right. I've been out there at 90-degree weather working my bees, and everybody says you're going to get heat stroke, but hey, that's why I like to work them.
Now, speaking of working your bees, I've seen people use smokers and things like that. Is that what you do, or? I
use a smoker, but I don't use it. I use it sparingly. Yeah, if they're not rowdy and coming at you strong, I don't use a smoke. That irritates them, and I'm sure that's what makes them get angry if you go using a lot of it. Yeah. But of course, like I said, I got that bee suit, and they can't get to me anyway. So I just sometimes go in there and just ignore them because they can't get to me, and they really ain't coming at me anyway. Just a dozen coming out there, and so I don't pay attention to them much. Yeah.
Now, what about government regulations on beekeeping? Are there any?
Well, there's state. There ain't too much the federal. There's state. you can't move them from one county to the next without getting an inspector to come out and inspect your hives and stuff like that for foul brood. It's a good law to keep foul brood from being spread around. We've had bring in from out of state, and some of them's got foul brood in them, and so it's a good law. Yeah.
And so, let's say you're deciding to move a hive, you have to call the inspector, and
Yep. She'll come out and inspect it and check to make sure there ain't no foul brood in it, and then they'll give you a certificate that you can move it and wherever you're going, and they're pretty good at it. The only thing is, the state of Illinois now, they're cutting the bee inspectors down so much that they're liking to run I think there's 3 or 4 bee inspectors now is all we got for the whole state, and they're liking to run them to death. And most of these bee inspectors are older people, they ain't young people. So, hey, and they don't pay them nothing much.
Huh.
Heck.
One had a stroke the first of the year.
Oh my gosh.
And they say he's in a wheelchair and getting therapy, but they think his beekeeping, bee inspection days are over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's the treasurer of the State Beekeepers Association too. We didn't know it until we got back from Arizona, so I sent him a card. Kind of thing.
So that's about the only regulations you got, and then of course the state's got the regulation on the honey. You got to have a certified honey house in order to go selling it at farmers markets or someplace like that.
Really?
Now some of these here local health departments, they got their own they got their own rules and regulations. So I got my honey house inspected through the state of Illinois, and that way they don't bother me. Because if they do, they got to go fight the state. And I found out that you don't win when you go fight in the state. Yeah.
And
so.
we always thought that if you didn't have an inspected honey house, or state okayed honey house, that you could sell honey if people came to your door and got it. But last November, our state beekeepers meeting, Elizabeth Watkins from the health department, state health department was there. She said, no, even that is illegal.
Really?
So.
So I guess they kind of have limited you to your market that you sell in.
You better get you a registered honey
Well,
house.
if you don't have an inspected honey house, you're not allowed to sell honey. Period.
I guess.
Okay, so.
Okay.
Now I can sell it to grocery stores like up there. The state can't control that, I guess, because that's interstate commerce or something. But
we had
but they don't.
register that with the USDA though, too, that we were doing that.
Well, that's true. And then Homeland Security, we had to register with them.
Well, same.
So.
Really?
Well, yeah. We had to register with Homeland Security because we sell to grocery store.
Because you sell your honey to a grocery store, you have to register with Homeland Security. Interesting.
Oh, yes.
Huh.
Which is no big deal. They just had to fill out a form and send it in, and that was the last we heard of them. But they got to know in case somebody goes and gets sick on the honey, and then they'll check it out or make sure some of these geeks from overseas don't come over here and poison it or something. I've got nothing no complaints about that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's for the welfare of everybody. So that you do that.
Interesting. Now, I mean, you've said that you sell a little bit to a grocery store around here. Yeah. Where else are you selling your honey?
Other than farmers markets, no place. Or if somebody comes up here and wants honey, I'll sell it to them. Yeah.
Okay. Springfield Farmers Market, we go to. Springfield Farmers
Market. Yeah.
Oh. Do you go to any other farmers market?
A lot of it. Well, we used to, but not anymore. I used to go to Macomb. There. I don't know whether I'll go back this year or not, but I might.
So, what's kind of the fun stuff to do at the farmers market then? I mean,
you visit with people, and in general, you have a good time.
That's a good outlet.
It's a good outlet for it. Yeah, you visit with your customers, and you get so that your customers know you're there, and if they want honey, they'll come there and get it. Every once in a while, I got an observation hive, and every once in a while, put some bees in it and take it up there so people can see it.
Really?
So
Well, that must be pretty
it's
neat.
fun. Kids get a bang out of it.
Oh, I'm sure.
And a lot of other too.
Yep.
Well, cool. Now, none of your kids are involved in, beekeeping or...
No, they went to college, and so they don't have to mess around with bees like I do. They got good jobs.
I mean, would you have liked them to get involved in the orchard and the beekeeping, or?
Well, I more or less let them do the choosing. We didn't insist that they do that or something like that. We more or less insisted that they go to college, but other than that, we didn't.
Of course, it's a lot of work, you know.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Labor, manual labor.
Yeah.
And really, the profit end on it ain't that great, but it's all right.
And you've kind of, am I kind of gathering that you're not really growing any more fruits and out here? And
I've got a few apples and peaches back here, but other than that, we're just kind of got alfalfa planted on the berry fields and stuff like that. So we've got a few apples and a few peach trees, but other than that, we
Well, I don't want to fuel on the thing, but we just that.
got chemicals got so expensive that you just have to charge so much that it really is not a very profitable anymore. Yeah. So.
And in terms of keeping bees, have you kind of been pulling back a little bit, or
not really?
Not really.
Mother Nature's been doing that for me, but I keep trying to build them up. I got bee equipment all over the place out here. I got enough bee equipment for 1,000 hives of bees, and so I don't know. Just Mother Nature thins them out, and then I try to build them back up because I like to work the bees. I get along with them good, and people like to have them around. I have a lot of farmers that like to have them sitting around, and so I got plenty of places to put them. I just haven't got the bees to put. So
now, do you ever? I mean, bees sting people, of course. Do you ever hear from people? Hey, I'm getting stung by the bees from your hive and things like that, or?
I don't believe I've ever have, because I always watch and don't put them close to somebody's house. I like to set them out in away from their house. The only way they get stung is if you go out there and kick a hive. And you go out there and kick a hive, and they're going to come out and sting you. It's like I told one guy, I said, if I come up and beat on the side of your house with a baseball bat, you're going to come out and say, stop it, and if you don't stop it, you're going to belt me one. Well, they're the same way. You come up there and beat on their hive, and they're going to come out. Usually they'll warn you. They'll fly around you first. And you just keep it up, and they'll go to put it on you. Yeah.
What do you see the future of beekeeping?
Well, there's not too many younger people getting into it. There is a few. But I'll tell you something. You see, we belong to the county market and all that kind of stuff, or not county market, the farm, all those things of the federal government and stuff like that. But the federal government does not come in and give the beekeepers any support whatsoever. Yep. We're just flat on our own. Like I lost a bunch of these hives last year. I lost about 60 hives of bees, and I went up and asked them if they had any support they could help me replace those bees, and they said no. I said, well, all the farmers around here have gotten support. If they have a disaster, you give them support. Yeah, well, them's farmers. You ain't a farmer, you're a beekeeper. So, hey, that's why I have got to the point to where I don't give very many interviews. Really? I say, hey, nobody's going to help me. Why should I do an interview? Yeah, so but that's it. I see that unless something happens, because our congressman up here did get kind of concerned about this disappearing disease. He was asking me if I was having any of that problem because they was kind of concerned because out in California they couldn't get enough bees to pollinate their almonds.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they're going to do this year, but it got pretty bad among those guys. So, but like I said, I and the young man I taught the bee business to, we don't use chemicals, so we haven't had the problem. I think that might have been part of the problem, but I wouldn't know.
So you've mentored somebody to take over?
Yeah,
on some of the hives?
I got a gentleman over here that I taught the bee business to.
Oh.
He's on his own now, but at one time he had 150 hives too, but I think he's down this year at about 60 something.
Oh, really?
The winters, them cold winters really get to you. And them bees, yeah.
Is there anything you can do to try to, keep a hive warmer through the winter?
Well, we wrap them in black plastic, but I think what probably ought to do is get some of this insulation board and make little things that goes over the outside of them, and that might that might do a better job of it. We'll have to see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what about the future of people who keep orchards like you've kept?
Well, I don't know. If they haven't got bees to pollinate them, well, you've seen these apples that's kind of lopsided and stuff like that. It means they're not pollinated. Because what it does when you're pollinating the seed inside that apple. And if you don't pollinate the seed in that apple, if it don't develop, then you're going to have a lopsided apple. So let's hope the bee industry keeps up enough that they can pollinate these orchards.
So that was kind of one of the larger problems that you found with some of your orchard stuff, and that's why you entered into beekeeping?
No,
so you're having a hard time with pollination?
I just got into beekeeping because of my strawberries out here.
Okay.
That started it, and it started building up, and then people started giving me bee equipment, and I finally got more bee equipment what I know what to do with. And so when I taught this young guy the beekeeping business, he didn't have to go buy equipment. I had so much of it, I didn't know what to do with it. So.
Well, that's pretty cool. We're kind of coming down to the end of the interview, and I have a question that I'd like to ask everybody. And this is kind of a personal question for you to answer. And the idea is that, this interview is going to be a historical document, and it's going to be kept for a very long time. And one day down the road, somebody might, walk into the museum and say, "Hey, look, there's great-great-grandpa Ellis's interview that he did, and he's talking about beekeeping and orchards and, life on the farm and everything." What would you like to put in here for them?
I don't know. I think I told you about everything I know.
One thing that a few years back, that Vladimir from Russia was over here.
Oh, yeah.
Came over here to work with us and learn the beekeeping.
Yeah. He had a beekeeper from the Soviet Union come over here, and they was with us for a week, and he went around to the hives and stuff like that and seeing how we done. And it was nice. And he was a nice guy. Yeah. So we enjoyed having him. Yeah.
Well,
that was several years ago.
Well, cool. I think we're just about finished up with our sit-down interview here, and thank you, Ellis. It was great to sit here and interview with you.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.